Hello everybody, and you are most welcome to Landywood Snooker Club here in the West Midlands for the 2024 World Billiards Championships. We've had a fantastic week here. Our huge thanks go to Paul and his wonderful team, Mr. Lloyd, his wife, all of the staff. The food, the ambience has been second to none. It has created a playing environment on these beautiful tables which has enabled the finest players in the world of billiards to play the very best billiards of their lives. We're going to have a 5-hour final today, divided into two sections of 2.5 hours with a 1-hour break. So 1 o'clock to approximately 3:30 for the first session, an hour of time to relax and have some food and nourishment, and then we will start back at 4:30 until 7, and somebody will walk away with this, the oldest world trophy in the history of sport. Fantastic championship, going back to 1870, I do believe, the John Roberts Trophy. First of all, it gives me pleasure to introduce the officials who will officiate. First of all, a man who will do meticulous records of every single shot that will be taken in this 5-hour final, and we will post a picture of the finished product, which will all be on one A4 page, but you can see every pot, every cannon, every shot, every in-off, every double pot off the spot up to the centre spot. It is the most fantastic notation which he has developed himself. From Ireland, Brendan Devlin. Hey. So if you, thank you, Brendan, and you can go and take your seat over there. Yeah. Our official marker to keep an eye on the referee in case it's such a long time to be concentrating for 5 hours, so he will double check any scores or whatever, and you will see the scores appearing on your screen. Mr. Jeffrey Lingard. Thank you, Jeffrey. And as somebody from the island of Ireland, I am very proud to introduce, for his first world final ever, I want a huge welcome and a generous applause for a man who has given his life to billiard refereeing, and it's very fitting that he should be given the honour of refereeing a world final. From Belfast, will you please welcome Martin O'Reilly. And so to our two players. First, a young man who has won everything that can be won with the exception of the world title, and hopefully he'll be able to do it this year. An 8 times English champion, a 14-time winner of a WBL ranking event, and this is his 4th world final, playing beautiful billiards all week. At the moment has the high break in the mid 364, I think it is. Will that go today? Who knows? Mr. Rob Hall. Yay. And his opponent from Middlesbrough, an 11 times world champion. He's had 7 short formats and 4 long formats, playing wonderful billiards, and hopefully he wants to go all the way this year, having been defeated in the final last year by the brilliant Peter Gilchrist. Please welcome the wonderful Mr. David Causier. So, we'll ask the referee to get the players to the table. They will string for break. We'll remove the banners and we will start as soon as everything is ready. Thank you.
A very good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to a really big day. In fact, the biggest day of the billiards calendar. It is the World Billiards Championship final. It is David Causier against Rob Hall, a couple of Englishmen going in search of the most important title this sport has to offer. And fittingly, for such an important occasion, it is a lengthy match. It lasts 5 hours in total, 2 sessions of 2.5 hours each, with an hour in between to rest, recuperate, and think about what's needed in the second half of the contest. Now, throughout the day, I'm going to be joined by several guests, and I'm delighted to say joining me for the first half an hour or so is the Managing Director of World Billiards, all the way from Australia, Jason Colebrook.
Afternoon, Phil.
Lots of anticipation out there.
Yes, this is a very exciting time for us. These World Championship finals often don't go according to plan. Last year, Dave Causier was the form player right through the event, and it just didn't happen for him in the final. Players are allowed 3 practice shots, and that's what they're doing at the moment. They're just having their 3 practice shots.
I think this is a really good idea, actually, because in the world of 9-ball pool now, even in televised matches, the guys are allowed 1 practice rack.
Yes.
Settles a few early nerves.
Yeah, get the Q arm going.
So the elephant in the room, Jason, we were here 12 months ago in this wonderful facility, Landywood Snooker Club, and everyone thought that David Causier was a big favourite to win the final. And basically, he had a very untimely off day.
It was most unexpected. He only made 2 breaks over 50 in 5 hours and no hundreds. And it's just mind-boggling.
Yes, the score 12 months ago, 1,824 for Peter Gilchrist, 783 for David Causier. And I think everyone here, Causier included, very surprised, no more so than the eventual champion Peter Gilchrist.
It was a big shock. Peter didn't put in one of his better games last year, but I think Peter averaged about 36 per visit and Dave only averaged about 15 per visit. In some of Dave's matches this week, he's averaged close to 100 per visit.
He's trying to regain the title he last won in 2022 in Singapore.
And that final was very one-sided the other way. Peter sat in his chair for a good portion of the 5 hours.
Yeah, won that final by over 700 points. Now, we talked about Causier. What about Rob Hall? What a massive occasion for him.
This is great for Rob. He hasn't been in a final for a few years, but he's still improving. He's 40 years old, which in billiards terms is relatively young. Dave's about 50 or 51. Peter Gilchrist's about 56. So Rob's still improving, and he's really looked good this week. He's made several 300s, and he's just looked sharp.
Yeah, he's made the 2 highest breaks of the tournament, the championship so far, 364 and 357. He has been over the piece, outscored by Causier, but Hall does have the highest break so far, and that's worth £1 a point.
Yes.
If it sticks.
And you can't always compare the points scored, over matches because Dave's a very fast player. Rob's not slow, but he's not as fast as Dave. Dave Causier is probably the fastest player we have.
So before we get a point on the board, your prediction?
No, I can't really make a prediction. Yeah, it's hard to say. I'm hoping for a close final. I'd be thrilled if we get a close final. They're both great guys. They're both great for the sport or very close. Now, this is a very nice scoring opportunity here. What Rob doesn't want is for Dave to get the jump on him, which Dave does to so many people. He comes out fast, makes a couple of big breaks, and suddenly you're 300 or 400 behind and the game's hardly started.
And you talk about snooker being a game of fractions. That was also because Rob was so close to getting his intended contact there.
Yeah, absolutely. So here we go, first drop cannon of the match. Trying to take these to top of the table. This is a perfect position to take to them top of the table. So this is a good scoring opportunity for Dave. This is his chance to put his authority on this match. Wherever you're watching from, let us know on our Facebook feed. Let us know what you're watching. Say hello, and if you've got any questions, we could try to answer them. No guarantees, but we'll have a go.
I think it'll be really interesting psychologically to see which way Causier goes. Will what happened in the final last year make him more determined, or will he become so obsessed, if you like, with making amends that he becomes nervous as a result? I think it will probably be the former.
Probably. I don't think Dave would mind me saying this. He's underperformed. I've just been corrected. It's make your comments on the YouTube channel, not Facebook. Thank you. In the last 5 or 6 World Championships, he's only won 1. But he's probably won 75% of the smaller tournaments. So I think he would regard it as he's underperformed in the World Championship in recent years.
Yes, of course, he didn't play in all tournaments this season, but the ones he's played in, he's undefeated. So if he wins this match today, he'll go through an entire campaign without losing. Now, in any sport on an international level, that is remarkable.
That's right. There's no one does that in any of the sports. This is as dominant as he's been. In 2018, we were in Leeds. He was beaten by Saurav Kathari of India in the semi-final. 2019 in Melbourne, he was beaten by Peter Gilchrist in the semi-final. Then, of course, he won it in 2022 in Singapore and beaten by Peter in the final last year. This is the first final since 2017 that Peter Gilchrist hasn't featured in.
Already in command of this situation. It's a position of great potential, as Jason said right at the start.
Yeah, Dave said something very interesting to me the other day. Because he moves the balls around a lot, some people used to say that he wasn't a top-of-the-table player, that he was an all-round player. He felt that he was unfairly judged, and he's worked very hard on his top of the table. And he now considers himself the equal of everybody in controlling the balls at the top. And he does. He's making much bigger breaks at top of the table. So interesting for the billiards aficionados. Dave quite likes playing postman's knock. Most of the top guys now much prefer floating wide. Dave comfortable with both, but he does really like postman's knock once he's got the pace of the side cushions, he said.
There's someone who's only got a passing knowledge of billiards. I absolutely love the game. I'm in awe of the way they realise and see these patterns and visualise everything so quickly. It's second nature.
Yep. It's very rare to see these guys pause to think, what am I going to do next? They think very fast. They've been in these different positions, many times. I think he wanted his cue ball a little further up the table there, so he's having it cleaned.
Big honour for the referee today from England, Martin O'Reilly.
The check scorer for this match is Brendan Devlin from Ireland, and the guy operating the Pro Score remote is Jeff Lingard from England. We've had a great crew of referees here. We had 2 referees come from my home country, Australia. Some Irish referees.
No, it's not appropriate for Rob Hall to panic, and he won't be. But Causier here, straight out of the gate, could establish a very big lead.
Yes. So at top of the table, these guys can score 100 points about every 6 minutes.
71.
If he does open up a big lead, Rob won't panic. Rob knows he can easily respond with a 300 and a 200 and
76.
Now, there is £1,000 for the player who makes 1,000 break. Now, that might seem like an impossible dream, but when you consider that Rob Hall at the Jim Williamson Open this season made an 8.42, maybe not so impossible.
No, that was Dave. Dave Causier.
Sorry. Dave Causier, the man at the table right now.
The difference is that wasn't with the balk line crossing rule, and this is. So the world record break under the balk line crossing rule, I think it's 9.57. It's in the 900s, and that's Mike Russell. The highest break in recent years under the balk line crossing rule is about 600. It's very hard. It means between every 100, between the 80 and 99, the player has to send their cue ball across the balk line from the billiard spot end into balk. It's not easy.
So the 1,000, then, you're saying it's possible but not probable?
Not probable. I'll be pleasantly surprised if we have to give out our $1,000. So he's lost position here at top of the table. He's now on 87. And while I've been talking, I haven't noticed whether he's crossed the balk line. I think he must have. He's missed that by quite a long way.
Here's 92.
It's an awkward leave for Rob. I don't think he can run through the yellow ball into the middle. He may be able to. He may just pot yellow, go in off the red, put the red in balk, play safe.
We've had quite a few messages already from Peter Tankard. Hi, Jason and Phil. It'll be a long night, so I'm settling in here in Sydney, Australia.
G'day, Peter. Peter normally comes to this event. I think he had business commitments or something this year. So he's played that run through and off. Oh, that's not what he wanted. It was a very tough shot. I didn't think he could control the yellow in that shot. So this is another scoring opportunity for Dave here.
So if you think about it, the game is all about scoring in clumps. And Causier here has had 4 breaks over 300 in the championship, 11 over 200 and 35 over 100. Now, in comparison, Rob Hall has had 3 300-plus breaks, 5 over 200, 13 centuries.
He's just a scoring machine, Dave, when he gets going. And it's a game where when you get on top, it can be a bit destroying for the other guy. He sits out for a long time. If a player makes a 350 break, he's probably held the table for 20 minutes. He may leave you safe and then make another 300. You get cold, the other guy's warm and flowing.
So is there anything you can do to be able to sustain concentration? Because obviously, if you're a snooker player, you might make a century, but that takes 10, 12 minutes, and then you have a respite before the next frame, even if you make another one. Whereas with billiards, you have to be scoring and at the table for very lengthy periods of time over a very lengthy match. So in terms of concentration, it really does take a lot out of a player, I would think.
It does, yes. And the players will be quite tired after a long match. I mean, obviously that's why we don't play a 5 hours match in one session, while we give them a mid-interval break. It is mentally tiring. And very occasionally, not the top guys, but very occasionally you'll see a guy late in the session play a rash shot or a quick shot, which will be an indication of mental tiredness. But Dave doesn't seem to get tired. He's scoring 1,000 points in 90-minute matches, and which is like around about 400 successful shots. like making 10 147s, back to back to back to back.
And I suppose the more you do it, the more you get used to doing it,
Yeah.
as with every other pursuit.
So I believe Dave's been practicing 4 hours a night for the last few weeks. So that's the sort of dedication he's been putting in. He's a working man, so he's worked a full day and then gone to his local club and practiced for 4 hours in the evening.
32.
He's back at the top of the table.
34.
It's quite hard to learn this top of the table. A lot of snooker players see billiards being played and think that looks easy. But the control of the balls is much harder than it looks.
40.
A perfect top of the table is only about 4 shots. But there's like 150 shots when they're not quite perfect, and you have to know them all. Probably go slow in off the red here. Leave a pot from hand.
47.
His potting this week's been very impressive. Well, it always is, but super impressive. Fortunately, I didn't give him the commentator's curse there.
Am I right in saying that potting is perhaps the greatest variable when it comes to how a player performs? When it comes to playing these cannons, they know what to do, whereas from one day to the next, your potting might be a little different.
No, I don't know that I agree. The potting is it's a very important part of the game. There's no good billiards player who's not a good pot, but you're only controlling the cue ball because the object ball's going in the hole. But when you play cannon, you're controlling all 3 balls. So I think the times that guys have a very good day is when all their cannons finish nicely. They're playing from one ball over 5 or 6 feet to a second ball and wanting to land exactly correct on that second ball. And the days that happen, they score heavily.
Well, this has been the ideal start for David Causier. Started off with a 92 break. Now this currently on 71. And counting, of course.
74.
These are the pots that he's been very impressive this week. These are very tight middle pockets, and he just puts these in with authority. And he doesn't dribble the cue ball down the table. He always runs through into the top cushion and out. Very confident on those pots.
79.
And he's back at top of the table.
81 golf line.
Now on 81, so he's going to have to cross the balk line soon.
And Jason, in light of what happened last year
84.
against Peter Gilchrist, this is absolutely manna from heaven for David Causier at this start.
Yeah. Now, that's gone a little bit awkward for him. He's going to have to manufacture something here with a balk line crossing. He wouldn't have been happy how that finished. He may put a ball down into balk. Very awkward for him. Now on 90, so he has to cross the balk line in the next 9 points. So he really wants this cannon. He really wants to get a nice drop on that red ball so that he's leaving himself a pot to go through the balk line.
94.
As predicted, that's exactly what he's got.
So skillful.
There he goes. So balk line crossed.
Golf line close.
And it's not just technique hours of practice. It's also lateral thinking.
Very. It's almost artistic billiards when it's played at the top level. The sequences of shots that guys devise to get the ball to top of the table. Half ball in off the red. He'll probably play this slow. He'd like to go in off the white, but I think the red's blocking his path. He'd like to go in off the white and bring it back up into the centre. Another good solid pot in the middle. He's looking confident.
Yeah, without wishing to cliche it, he is looking like a man on a mission.
Yep.
Trying to right the wrongs of 12 months ago.
Rob's only had one shot so far. A lot of people are interested in the equipment that the players use. Dave Causier just uses the old-fashioned blue diamond tips. He said he's always used them. He hasn't changed. He doesn't see any point trying the newest and latest. Rob Hall uses a Straits Billiards Paradigm soft tip, and Rob's actually the English distributor for those tips. Those tips are made by my mate in Singapore, Jeremy, and his buddy Jack. I use a medium of those tips. They're very nice.
And what about the chalk, Jason? Because in recent years, the world of snooker has been revolutionised with the new town chalk, which has definitely reduced kicks and also big bounces. Do they use the town chalk?
Most of them do. I actually haven't noticed what Dave uses. I haven't played Dave recently, but most of the players do. Rob does. Peter Gilchrist does. We had one interesting comment this year was that the Tayum chalks are round. When you drop them, they roll, often under the table. The old square chalks, when you drop them, they just stay where they fall.
I think it's worth the trade-off.
Yeah, definitely. Very good equipment at this club. All the long extensions and the long cues and everything is just everything you could want. It's a really terrific club.
Yeah, not just the facilities, which are second to none, and I really mean that, but also the memorabilia around the walls.
Oh, it's great, isn't it? It's hard to tell when you're looking at a monitor, but this looks narrow. I think he'd have to play this with a lot of check side. Oh no, he made that look easy. Probably going in off the red here. And he's set up another drop cannon to go to top of the table. We call these drop cannons because you want your ball to just drop gently onto the second ball. Just like that.
So for the layman, Jason, please explain postman's knock. What's the derivation of that?
So postman's knock is where you have the other guy's ball anchored onto the top cushion directly below the billiard spot, or the black spot as some people will call it. And you continue, when you play the cannon, you're bouncing your cue ball onto that and back up and keeping it anchored there. And when it's played, when it's played perfectly, that cue, the other guy's ball just stays there, just stays anchored to the top cushion. I don't know why it's called postman's knock. It's a old-fashioned term. And postmen don't knock on the door anymore these days. It's a little bit awkward. You probably have to go away from top and come back. Oh, he's tried to leave an in off the white there, and it caught the jaw and come out a little bit. Probably have to screw back off the red. That's not quite what he wanted there. He'll try and pace this for the red to come back down, or he's over screwed.
5-1.
So 151 that break. Now leads 243 to 0. And you can see how beautiful his pace was. That red's right over that pocket. He sent that red about 22 feet, and he's got it to within 6 inches of where he wanted.
So it looks like a hefty lead, but as Jason has explained already, this can be easily wiped out by someone of Rob Hall's expertise and skill.
It's just one break. In the semi-final yesterday, Rob versus Peter Gilchrist, they were both about level on about 380, and then Rob put in a 230 or 40 break to sort of put the pressure on Peter. So yeah, it's not anything to be panicking about. But he will really want to hold the table for a while here.
6.
Yes, in the semi-finals, played over 4 hours, he defeated the defending champion Peter Gilchrist, 1,217 to 1,050. And I think the break you're alluding to was the 259 he knocked in.
Yes, and it was a very absorbing final. Peter looked gone. In fact, with half an hour to go, I sometimes draft the social media postings for Singapore, and I was already writing Peter's obituary. And then Peter responded with a 160 and then a 220 back to back to get within about 50. So this is the crucial shot here. He wants to a little thick in off this, bring it up for the drop cannon. But these pockets are tight on this shot. So you see there, he's played that with running side to pocket side to help that go in. So he'll have to play a long loser. Or a long in off.
16.
And he's going to have to play another long in off. And he's going to have to play another long and off, unless he can play a thick check side drop cannon. No, he's going to have to play another long and off. This is a dangerous shot, Phil. It's easy to lose the yellow in the pocket when he goes in off it. What he wants to do is go in off in the right-hand top pocket, but not... Well, there we go. Very good.
So in snooker, when maybe a cue ball is close to a side cushion, or a ball is very important in terms of holding a break together, we describe it as a pressure shot. Would this be a pressure shot in billiards?
That last one was. This one's not. This one's a bread and butter shot. The drop cannon. Drop cannons are notoriously fickle. Some days the balls just line up. Not really that you've done anything wrong. So now Rob's at top of the table. So what he's doing here, he's just going around to have a look where he wants to leave the cue ball. So when he plays the yellow to red cannon next, he can bump that yellow behind the spot. No, he didn't like it, so he's coming up to pot. Decided he couldn't quite get the right angle, so he'll pot the red in the other side. Oh, he may be too straight. It's fascinating watching them manoeuvre these balls around until they can get the yellow behind the spot.
30.
By the way, we've had a possible explanation for the derivation of postman's knock from Chris Chamberlain, who said, I believe it's called postman's knock because you double kiss the opposition white, i.e. hit it twice, and the postman always knocks twice.
Ah, okay.
There was a movie, wasn't there? The postman always rings
Yes,
twice.
yeah.
36.
That was a pressure shot. Easy to get the cannon, but you want to get the pace right. Now, he doesn't want this red to hide behind the yellow. That's unlucky. Someone complained yesterday that I called certain shots unlucky. But again, he's moved that red through 20 odd feet, and it's only about 6 inches from where he wanted it. This is very awkward. He may try to run through the yellow with pocket side and have the yellow kiss the red out of the way. It's very tough. He's going to try to screw back into that pocket. That was very tough.
Roll 36.
He would have wanted more than 36 from the way he initially manoeuvred those balls.
So we're going to see a double balk here. I don't think Dave will try and score off the red.
Yeah, 2.
Yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, in billiards you can't fire back behind the balk line. He has to play out of balk. He can hit a cushion outside of balk and spin it back into balk. That's probably what he'll do here. He'll try and have his cue ball rest against that left-hand cushion. He won't be happy with that. And that's why he won't be happy. Now Dave can go in off the white and bring the white out of balk. He really wanted that white hard up on the cushion.
3.
Ooh.
Yeah, 3.
You know, sometimes in cue sports, when a mistake occurs, you might hear the words, well, he put in a quick one there. And I thought he did.
I did too. I was about to say the same thing. So often when players do put in a quick one, it's like tension. They're not confident of the shot at all.
2.
Yeah, the shoulder was a little too involved.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that was surprising. I think he wasn't sure he could get it out of balk. This is a bit awkward. He may like to play the screw back cannon, but it's a long distance to screw back accurately. And I think he's worried about the red catching the jaws, the balk jaws, and not coming back. It's quite awkward. May take on the pot. May screw back off the side cushion. He's taken on the pot. And I think he's lined them up, which was, I think, part of his thought process. He played that nice and slow so that if he missed, they'd be lined up. That looks good. That's a good shot. You see the pace he's played that to just leave it in the jaws if it didn't go in. So the players generally don't like playing this type of safety where the balls are close to the corner. That's a fairly big target. I think we may see Rob have a go at this. Rob likes this shot playing around all the cushions. A lot of guys go up and down, but he likes to go right round the table. There we go, that's a great shot. What a great shot. He's played 2 or 3 of those, got a really good result this week.
Landywood is in a county called Staffordshire, but the neighbouring county, which isn't too far away from here, it's called Shropshire, and there's a hill called the Wrekin. And around this part of the world, they say if you're taking a circuitous route anywhere, you're going all around the Wrekin. Well, that was the shot from Rob Hall there, and it worked out perfectly.
That was a great shot. I'm going to vacate the chair, Phil, and I'm going to let Peter Sheehan come and sit in.
A pleasure, as always. Thanks, Jason. Looking forward to hearing Peter's expertise. Peter's with us now. Welcome.
Thanks, Phil. Yeah, thanks, Phil.
So what do you make of it so far?
Obviously, Dave's got off to a good start. He's just been devastating all week. I was on the end of him last night in the semi-final, the second session. He was quite devastating against me, really. And he's so hard to stop if he gets a head of steam up and gets a good 400 or 500 point lead on you. But Rob's been playing great all week. He's been scoring heavy. He's a number 200 and 300s. So he's more than capable.
I was talking to Jason earlier about the fact that Rob, yes, he's the underdog, but he's definitely capable of pulling off a surprise win, and what a big occasion for him.
14.
Yeah, definitely. As I said, he's a class act, Rob, on and off the table. It's a great lad. He's a top player. You know, his top of the table play is fantastic, very tight, and he's more than capable of knocking a 4-5 under break in this final. It's very early days. Obviously, Dave's got to a good start, not the start that Rob would have wanted. However, I say there's a long time to go yet.
So you've told us a little bit about your semi-final yesterday. The end score in favour of David Causier was 2,235 to 899. Was there a particular turning point in your mind?
I actually got off to a good start, and to beat Dave over 4 hours, which was what the semi-final was over, you've got to play more or less no-miss billiards, and Dave's made me not to play as good as he normally would. I got off to a decent start, and then I had numerous chances in that first session, which I just didn't put any pressure on Dave. I was a bit disappointed with myself, really, and then the second session, he just, you know, he went up a few gears, and unfortunately for me, I was sat down for most of the second session.
Terrific achievement, though, semi-final. Nevertheless, you must be, I suppose, mixed emotions. Disappointed not to make the final, but pleased that you got so far.
Yeah, I'm happy. I got to the semi-final last year, and Peter Gilchrist beat me. I had a really good win in this quarter-finals against India's Devaj Harrier. In my opinion, I think he's going to be a multiple world champion over the next few years. He's an absolutely fantastic player, very natural, very quick. And it was a very tense finish, come from behind and end up winning by about 70 points with a late 73 break. So that was a really good game for me. And then going into Dave, it was quite a long day, really.
Not quite enough room, maybe. And small things like that can make a massive difference.
It can, if you can get a thinning off and get the white outer baulk here. It probably wasn't, that was too, the angle wasn't there, but he's probably going to be looking for maybe a 2 or 3 cushion cannon off the red. He's got a big target with the white being by the corner pocket there. Move inside. Be unlucky to go around the back. No, he's got it.
A little bit like watching one of those 3-cushion billiards magicians.
6.
He plays that shot really well, Dave. He just keeps the red in the middle of the table. Really good pace on the red. So he's got options now. You're looking to get the white into a position to, his cue ball into position to get the cannon here. Just slightly underhit that in off.
14.
Didn't want the red there in the side cushion. That's a great shot. He's just a bit of running side to widen the angle. Dave's such a great shot maker. If you think he's in trouble, and the next minute he pulls out a 4-cushion cannon, or he slams a pot in down the cushion, or whatever it is, it's just a fantastic shot maker and recovery player. And before you know it, he's back in again, and he's on a drop cannon, he's away at the top. So I know for a fact that after last year's final performance, he was really disappointed how he played. I think he's really determined to avenge that defeat last year, even though he beat Peter last weekend at the English Open final.
You know, being able to time and time again produce recovery shots batters your opponent down, doesn't it? It's the same in snooker with Judd Trump. He's perhaps not the most masterful when it comes to controlling the cue ball, has to knock in a large number of recovery shots, does so on a regular basis, and you can see the opponent, the vim and vigour drains out of them.
Yeah, I agree, Phil. It was actually talking about this last night. I think probably the best comparison as a snooker player for Dave would be, in my opinion, Judd Trump. He's very similar, you know, so naturally talented. And so you can get a bit of hope and you think that he's out of position and you're going to be in. And the next minute he's played an unbelievable shot or pot or cannon, whatever it is, and they're back in. And it just drained you a little bit, knocks your confidence.
And little psychological hurdles like that add up. Mark Williams, early in his snooker career, quite often used to shake his head as though he wasn't on the ball, and then after a minute or two, get down and knock it in sweet as a nut, and you could see the other guy in the chair get more and more annoyed. And when you've been given, as you use the word, when you've been given hope and it's extinguished, that's hard to take time and time again.
It is, yeah. And you've got to try and keep your confidence outlook as much as you can, really. But I say, if Dave's on form, he can be absolutely devastating. He's done to everyone, where he absolutely annihilates you. He's just ruthless and he never stops. His powers of concentration are just phenomenal, really. For the length of time, he just non-stops. Even during the group games, he was scoring 1,000 points in the 90-minute matches, which is just, outstanding scoring. And even though he was never going to lose the game, and still with 20 minutes to go, he's just determined to make it over 1,000 points and keep going and become, and obviously with the point aggregate, become the number 1 seed, which helps with the draw as a point pans out into the knockout stage. His concentration is probably his biggest asset.
Well, that was an unexpected miss, and it came close to being a fluke, actually.
Yeah, it was. He missed a couple now, but might be a bit of edginess. That's a lovely shot by Rob there.
So I touched on this with Jason Colebrook before you joined us in the commentary box, Peter, and I'd like to get your opinion on this. Everyone was very surprised that Causier performed so poorly in the final last year against Peter Gilchrist. The question is, why?
I don't know, to be honest. Dave's not really said anything to me about it. He was just so off colour. I think he only had one break over 50 in the 5 hours, which is just what odds you'd get for that, I don't know. But it was just a so out of character performance. And I know he really upset him how badly he played. It really did. Whether he could have been the fact he'd been here all week playing so well, and then just ran out of steam in the end. As I say, it does take it out of your body and your concentration for that playing for that length of time. But I think he's got a bit of determination about him this week to avenge that performance. But I think Rob might have something to say about that if Rob gets going as well.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt the determination is there for David Causier, but also if Rob Hall can put him under pressure, maybe the bad memories of last year will come and undermine him.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's a World Championship final, and everyone's human. I say, Ronnie, Judd Trump, all these brilliant players, Dave, they're all human, and everyone feels pressure. Sometimes people feel less than others or whatever. And if Rob can get some big visits in and get ahead of him, Dave's naturally going to feel under pressure. Well, that's what he needs to do. I say you can't let Dave get a head of steam and get a big lead, 500-600 point lead on him, because Dave just starts to run away from you, and he's just so hard to stop.
Yeah, and Rob's a student of the game, fully understands all of the intricacies, and he will know the situation that Causier's in, and he'll try to exploit any weakness there is there, if there is any weakness at all.
Yeah, definitely. So Rob's more than capable. I know he's put a lot of work into this. He's been playing great all week, and he's been scoring heavy at the top. Rob he's very methodical, but he can play at speed as well when he wants to, when he gets going at the top. A lovely touch at the top of the table. I don't know, all it'll take here is if he can get a double century, 300, and he's right back into it, and it's going to make it a really interesting game. So it's a long time, the final, and it's going to be a time where Rob dominates the table, and hopefully this could be it now, the start of it.
And of course, the longer the match, the more resonance, the more meaning it has.
Yeah, and say basically, if in a billiards match, you'll see a lot of the tournaments we play at an hour matches or 90 minutes. And an hour really, it's even if you're a top player, if you're playing a decent player, if you get off to a bad start, it can be hard to, you start chasing the game. It can be difficult. You can lose to, say, lesser players if you like. But generally, in billiards, over a longer period of time, the better player would normally win. Because of the scoring power, and they say Dave's scoring ability is just phenomenal. It's probably second to none, the speed and the amount of points that he can score. However, if Rob just keeps on playing and keeps Dave off the table, which is what Peter did last year, there's no reason why that Rob can't win this. Oh, he's put too much side on that and a slide on the cushion. Oh, it looks like he actually got it. He's saying he's got it.
Wow. Now,
interesting.
From my viewpoint, I didn't think he had made the cannon. Rob didn't either, but the referee thought he had.
I can't tell it from here, but I don't know if David actually said that he thought that he got it. Which, if he did say that, that's great sportsmanship.
Again, well, I said right at the top of the match, in a different context. It's a game of fractions.
It certainly is, and in this game, if you're playing well and you get a little rub of the knuckle or a very thin cannon or a little nudge here and there, it makes all the difference when you're making a break. And a little nudge here and there can turn a 150 break into a 400 break.
And of course now Rob is, in his mind, playing with house money. He was walking away from the table, thought the visit was over. It is not.
Yeah, it's a bonus now, so that's got to give him confidence there. As I say, that we talked about before, Dave probably had a bit of hope. Oh, he's missed, and he'd stuck him up in a really good position. Only to say they actually got the cannon, and he's back at the table. So Rob would be looking to take full advantage.
When someone plays a thin contact in snooker, Joe Johnson, the 1986 world champion, always says he caught the paint, and maybe that's what Rob Hall did there. Caught the paint.
Yeah, it was that thin. We didn't even see it move, did we? But sometimes you can get it that thin, it just glances and it just rocks back again. He's tried to do the balk line earlier, 80. Slightly under hit it, but I think he's okay.
Yeah, you've got to cross the balk line every 100 points, of course. And when does that get into your psyche? What sort of numbers are we talking about?
I think you start, if you're in good position at the top of the table, you around 65, 70 points, you're starting to think about it. And ideally, if you're in the postman's, always that's a poor miss really. If you're in the postman's knock, in the floating white position with the white just underneath the red spot, you'd be looking to get high in the red, play a cannon off the red underneath the cushion, and then underneath the white to leave like a half ball pot into either pocket. Then you could be coming round off 3 or 4 cushions around the table once you've got the speed of the table to come back into position again.
The last thing I want to do is sound simplistic. I probably do, but was the miss there, the mistake, the error from Rob Hall, which could be really expensive, was that down to just concentration?
It can only be down to concentration. You wouldn't miss that if you played another 100 times. It's just one of them. Maybe he put a quick one in, he took his eye up it slightly. You'd be disappointed with that shot, Rob, because they say it's quite a good leave he's left, Dave. Although he's played that drop cannon poorly. He's caught the red far too thin, and that should have been over the pocket. But then here's a good example of his recovery, maybe. He's got a little kiss there. That is a big fluke for Dave. That he was missing that, the little glancing off the white, and he's been stuck up again.
When you've got someone as unbelievably skillful as him, it seems unfair when they get a fluke.
Yeah, I know.
Now the word has come back from Jason Colebrook. They've just reviewed the cannon that Rob Hall thought he hadn't got, but the referee was absolutely right. There was the most minuscule of contact.
Yeah, I think it was in sometimes an occasion like that. I speak to a few referees and they say they'll listen for the contact. If it's that thin, sometimes you don't see it, but you can hear it, and it's the very, very slight touch of the ball. But the referee was right, so it's a good spot. You're looking to play the cannon here and get on the top side of the red to leave a pot, and maybe push the white back across the table. Oh, he's caught it too much. He's missed it. That is a surprising miss.
Well, we've seen 4 or 5 now from the two of them combined already.
Yeah, must be a bit of tension out there.
Fascinating match, though, because of its, I suppose, so far, total unpredictability.
Yeah, I mean, it would be great if it goes right to the wire. It's a really close game. It make it really good viewing for people watching.
Yeah, if you're just joining our stream on the World Billiards YouTube channel, welcome. Thanks for supporting the final. I can tell you what's occurred so far. David Causier began with breaks of 92 and then 151. Since then, though, his scoring has slowed, and Rob Hall, although he's not been immune to mistakes himself, is now back within a manageable deficit.
Yeah, I think after the first 2 visits that Dave had, if you'd said to Rob at this stage, he'd only be 150 points behind, I think he'd have been quite happy with that, really. Considering sometimes Dave can get off to a start, and after an hour, you can be 500-600 points behind, and you're really up against it then. But Rob will just keep plugging away. He play at his own speed, and if you can get gold at the top, get a double century in, it's game on. He's landed on the wrong side of the yellow there, leaving himself covered. Possibly a screwing off into the right corner pocket. Or he's going to try the thin cannon. Definitely didn't get that one. That's the type of little runs that you can get, as Phil was saying before. If he'd finished half an inch up that way, he's got an easy cannon. That's the levels and the minute detail that can make hell of a difference, to how the result of this match is going to go.
David Causier has been very dominant here so far. Won all of his group matches. He was in Group B, won all of them convincingly against Devendra Joshi, Terry McAdam, Paul Mather and Corbin Lowe. Then he beat Jason Goodwin in the last 16, making breaks of 213, 293 and 5 other centuries. He won that match 1,475 to 353. Darren Clark was the victim in the quarterfinals, 1,679 to 432. Causier there, aided by 3 breaks over 200, and then he overcame my co-commentator Peter Sheehan in the last 4.
So he was back in good position here. He's been looking, trying to get that white behind the red. Maybe say he'll play a little glancing cannon over the top of the red, back up again. Yeah, he's got the red, got them perfect now. That is where he's got it now. It's a classic floating white position. The opponent's cue ball just to the side of the red, and you come up high on the red now. Play a cannon off the red onto the cushion and push that white back up to the line, just next to the red, as close as you can get it. Leaving a pot red after this. See this little touch there. When we refer to the line, we refer to like an divisible, like a white line going directly across the table from the red. Closer the white ball gets to the cushion, the more difficult it gets. So you'll be keen to get underneath that white and push it back up again. Which is what he's done here. Play another cannon, recovery cannon at the bottom, top cushion underneath, leave a pot, and the white back up to the line.
42.
He was in a great position here. He pushed the white back behind, close behind the red spot, and leave a nice simple pot. And it's like when it's played well, like top floating white, it can be quite repetitive. You know, the sequences, but it requires so much skill and touch and technique, and years of practice.
Yeah, I think in modern sport there's this theory that something that's repetitive isn't good, but how can you not enjoy watching this? It's a master at work.
Yeah, and that's the difference really between billiards and snooker. I mean, there's 22 balls on a snooker table, and no 2 frames are ever the same, ever. But billiards, when it's played to a top level, high standard like this, it can be quite repetitive. So to the untrained eye, it can be, yeah, possibly a little bit boring is the word, but you wouldn't really understand what was going on and the levels of skill and concentration required, because you're controlling the 3 balls here, not just 2. You're controlling 3 balls. Dave would be constantly thinking out where he's going to put his opponent's white next and how he's going to manoeuvre it.
I suppose, Peter, the other misconception is that if you watch a casual viewer, don't know a lot about the game, you might think the game is easy. It isn't. It's just that these guys make it look easy.
Yeah, as I say, that's another thing you can say about billiards when it's played to a top level. It can look easy, but I'd say to anyone, any really good snooker player, put the balls in floating white position best you can and see if you can make a 50 break and keeping the balls there, because I guarantee most non-billiard players who don't play top of the table don't know how to play it, but struggle to get past 20 and, you know, without losing control of the 3 balls. Requires you know, hell of a lot of knowledge and practice to develop the touch and to know the patterns and the sequences that are required to play top of the table.
85.
Something else that billiards has got, it had one figure who was so masterful that he defied belief, a little bit like Babe Ruth in baseball or Sir Don Bradman in cricket. They took the sport to a new level. And that was the same with Walter Lindrum, wasn't it? As we see a shot that Lindrum would have been proud of himself.
Yeah, back in the good old days, Walter Lindy was that good, really. He more or less killed the game. With his nursery cannons, he was just an absolute phenomenal. And a lot of people don't know that when he was young, he was actually a right-handed player. Damaged his hand and just turned around and turned over and started playing left-handed.
So there, the mistake is made. Causier leaves the table with a 240-point lead as we approach the first hour of play being completed. So the advantage for Causier is useful, Peter, but certainly not running away with this, is he?
No, definitely not. I mean, it's just over 240 points, something like that. So it's definitely not insurmountable, but it's a poor miss by Rob, really. He may have got a kick there. It did seem to throw quite wide. That enough. He missed that by a good few inches, which is very unlike Rob. There's naturally going to be a bit of nerves, a bit of tension there. Say it's a well found at the end of the day.
Yeah, nerves for different reasons. Obviously, David Causier wants to forget what happened in the corresponding match last year. Also, if he wins, what an achievement it would be. He would have gone through the entire world ranking season, every single tournament he's entered. He would have won it. Now, in this day and age of international sport where standards are so good, that's mind-boggling, isn't it, to win every tournament you play in?
Yeah, he's just, I say, he's done it all. I think he's 11 times he's won the world title, long format and short format. He's just a devastating player, and he seems to be getting better and better. And I know how hard he works as well. He doesn't slack off. He still practices 3 or 4 hours a day, solo mainly as well. Doesn't really play with other people. He practices solo, and playing solo can be quite difficult sometimes to maintain your concentration. So he puts the work in, and he's definitely reaping the rewards of it the last few years, because he's, a lot of the time he's more or less unbeatable the way he's playing. It's very rare that Dave does actually lose. We actually went to India. We got invited, a few of us, over to Mumbai in March this year. The CCI Cricket Club of India ran a tournament there, and Dave went, myself, Rob, Peter Gilchrist, against all the top Indian players. Devaj Hari and Pankaj Advani was there, and Pankaj Advani played Dave in the final, and it was like, in most people's eyes, Pankaj and Dave, the two best players in the world, and it was like a battle royal, really. But Pankaj was absolutely unbelievable. He made a 400 odd and an 826, I think. Looked like it was going to be the first 1,000 break, and Pankaj beat Dave, I think it was by 1,500 points, which it shows tells you how much a good player that Pankaj is to beat Dave by that amount of points. Phenomenal player.
So I'm intrigued to know, what was the actual club like? It sounds opulent.
Yeah, we actually went there years ago, but it's my first trip back there in about 20 years. But the Cricket Club of India in Mumbai, obviously it's a cricket ground. It's an absolutely fantastic place. Really luxurious place. We looked after really well. It's one of the best billiard rooms. I think it's got 4 tables in. It's fantastic. Really, really great place to play billiards.
Well, thanks very much indeed, Peter, and let's hope that next year you go 1 or even 2 steps deeper.
Thanks very much, Bill. Cheers.
31.
Now, my next co-commentator is a man I haven't seen for about 20 years, but we gave each other a big hug when we did reunite. It's like the old days at the Irish Masters at Goffs. Angus McAnally.
Great to see you, Phil. Thank you so much for being here. Yes, indeed. Such great days we had in Goffs. Kevin Norton running that wonderful Benson and Hedges Irish Masters. Remember those days when cigarette companies were allowed to be the sponsor? But Kevin, I have to say, ran such a great tournament. All of the players loved how they were looked after, and I think there was nothing that they wouldn't do for Kevin. All those meet and greet sessions that he had every day. He'd bring them to the races in the Curragh. He would look after them, and many a sing-song we had in the Cadine Hotel of an evening. Great to see you again, Phil, and congratulations on the work you've been doing, and thank you for being here. That's my big passion, which obviously is billiards over the years.
No, I'm really honoured to be here, actually. I was at Clive Everton's funeral earlier this week, and I was thinking on the way here, how much Clive would have loved to have done what I'm doing right now with a lot more knowledge, of course. Yes, it was a great shame that he passed away, and we'll miss him forever.
And I suppose it was amazing that the snooker tournament being played that week was for the Clive Everton Trophy, so it was very appropriate, and he was held in such high regard, not only for his commentating, but for his interests, for his enthusiasm, and let's face it, for the work he did in his magazines to keep everybody informed of every snooker and every billiard match in the country for 40, 50 years.
Incredible. He had no off switch. Recently, actually, about 2 or 3 years ago, he rang me up at 11 o'clock on Christmas morning to ask me the provisional ranking of one of the Chinese players.
Such is the dedication needed. So here we are, just an hour and 10 minutes into this 5-hour match, and I think it's fair to say a nervy start from both players. Dave Causier on 460 at the moment, Rob Hall on 165. But I would think both of them have had maybe 3 or 4 opportunities from which they didn't really score, Phil, and you would expect at this level that they would have knocked in a single or a double almost on every opportunity.
Yeah, I think, if players could know what's going to happen in a match, whether it be pool, snooker, billiards, whatever, if they could know beforehand what's going to happen and how well or how below par their opponent is going to play, I think they would approach it in a very different way. Look at that. Rob Hall could not have anticipated the amount of mistakes we're seeing from his opponent.
Well, for Dave Causier to miss a red off the spot, even though he was screwing back with reverse sides to get out high for the top of the table position, I don't think I've seen Dave miss one of those in 6 months, perhaps. And by the same token, I saw Rob miss a long enough 10 minutes ago, which is most uncharacteristic. Now, is he going for safety here? Because, yeah, just playing safe. He didn't fancy forcing the cue ball in off the red and balk, because the amount of power he would have to have used could have swerved it offline a little bit. So we may see, unless Dave can screw in off here, and if he gets the right angle, he could move the white. If it checks off this cushion, yeah, I just checked a little bit too much, but that should be nicely back towards either an in off in the centre, or he would be able to double the red towards the right hand, the opposite side centre pocket, and move the white off the cushion here. Just leave it on for an in off to the end, perhaps. So there's the red across, and doesn't want that white to come back and block, but he's okay because he can work the red now and get down and be able to get in off the white eventually.
When he missed the red off the spot, he could not have imagined that so quickly he'd be back scoring.
Yes, Phil, at this level we've watched both players in their respective matches either dominate for maybe 40 minutes at a time, or indeed be sitting in their seat for 40 minutes. Such is the quality of play. When you see Rob's semi-final last night was incredible. He was way ahead, and Peter Gilchrist came back within 60 or 70 points with a double century and some. But that's I do love how Dave positions the opponent's ball right behind the billiard spot and then works the red to come down for perfect top of the table. So just a couple more shots now and he should be in prime position. And from a situation like this, one would expect Dave Causier or Rob or Peter Gilchrist or Peter Sheehan to make a single or a double, but they're just not just quite perfect yet. But I think the skill set that these players possess enables them to rectify the situation fairly quickly.
So Angus, I must ask you about your background with billiards. How did you become such a knowledgeable and enthusiastic follower and supporter of the game?
Well, Phil, when I was 13, I was in school in Fairview in Dublin, and one of my classmates told me that there was a snooker hall, and I used to stay in for lunch because I lived so far away from the school, and we went down to the snooker hall, and I absolutely loved it. I think it was £1 and 3p for an hour. And I went home and I told my father that I had started playing snooker, and my dad was an actor and a very big man with a big voice, and he said, "You what? Stand there." And he went off, and he came back, and I thought I was petrified. I thought something bad was going to happen. And he arrived back in and he handed me his cue that his father had given him, and he gave to me, and I've since given it to my son and his son, and that started a love of billiards. I was the 1971 Irish Boys Billiards champion, but I do have to admit openly and honestly that year nobody else entered the competition, and I went to Ackles and Pollock outside Birmingham and played. I think Tony Mio and Tony Knowles and people like that were in it, and I loved it. Then I started playing a lot, and then of course obviously my dad, who used to do the snooker commentary, became very busy doing his movie work or whatever. Oh my goodness, there's an unbelievable miss from Dave.
It's happening so often. I think you could call it a pattern now, not just an isolated incident. Balls that are being missed that you would not believe.
Wow. That's quite a surprise now. That'll rattle Dave just a little bit. So a chance for Rob here now just to bring the red back down the table. Needs to get nice position to start moving the yellow around.
It seems to me that David Causier, for understandable reasons, is under more pressure than normal. If Rob Hall can intensify that pressure, this match could really turn around.
Well, it's such a long match, and as a world final should be. I mean, there's 5 hours in total, and we're just over, nearly 25% through. So way hours and hours to go yet. So one would expect players at this level to dominate for a period of half an hour, 40 minutes, and then the other player will come back at it. So options here, can play the in-off and position the red back for a nice drop cannon if he wants.
Yeah, you just mentioning your father there, of course. I think his most famous movie was The Mission. And you could say that's all that David Causier's on today, The Mission, to make up for last year.
Absolutely. He was quite rightly gutted to have played so badly in the final and to watch Peter Gilchrist play such fantastic billiards. And one of the things I love about all of the players at this level, while obviously defeat hurts them greatly, they are full of admiration and respect for the quality of play of their opponents. And I think that's something that sets them apart from maybe snooker players. There is a generosity of acknowledgement of talent that I don't think you necessarily get in the snooker game. I think the egos are bigger in snooker than they are in billiards. I think it's the love of this great, beautiful game that unites them.
The paychecks most certainly are bigger.
Well, don't get me started on that. It breaks my heart that the world final is contested for a prize of 5,000 and the World Snooker final is 500,000. But we do acknowledge and accept it is a niche game. So what we need is a very wealthy benefactor who loves billiards, who would like to add their naming rights to the tournament, and we would be delighted to speak with them. So about 5 or 6 years ago, obviously I've been involved in playing billiards, and I was asked to join the board of World Billiards and to, perhaps with my television background, maybe act as MC and try and see if we could make the events feel a little bit more like television, and hence why we've people like yourself here, and we're so grateful that you add a gravitas to these proceedings, Phil, for which it's wonderful, because we want him with Sam Jones, our streaming expert. We feel that this is comparable to a television program that you could see on any of the stations of a sporting nature.
Well, I must say, Sam does a wonderful job. I met him at the UK Open pool, actually, earlier this year. He was there doing the event in Telford in Shropshire, and yeah, he's very professional, and it's great working with him.
So now this is a perfect opportunity for Rob Hall as he heads towards the 200 points mark, just 202 there. So still 300 points behind. And that's at the level at which these guys play. It can be a 5-minute century. So in 15 or 20 minutes were he to hold the table, he could very easily be on a parity with Dave. 2.5 hours for the first half of this match, then there'll be an hour for lunch, and then a further 2.5 hours. So I think one of the things is the stamina needed, Phil, the concentration and stamina at this level, particularly when, obviously you're very familiar with snooker, where, okay, they'll play to a positional shot to hopefully be on 2, 3, 4 or 5 reds. You only got, the white, the yellow and the red, so you really need to concentrate at all times.
Yeah, there's two forms of stamina with billiards. Physical, undoubtedly, because of the lengthy nature of the matches, but also, I think even more pertinent, the mental stamina to avoid making silly mistakes you would never normally commit. And by the way, having talked about stamina, what about this? In 1980, the world champion was Fred Davis, who was 67 years of age at the time.
Truly wonderful. And hopefully this afternoon we are thrilled that Mr. Rex Williams, at the ripe old age of 91, will be gracing us with his presence to watch the second half and to say hello to everybody and to show his admiration for the quality of these great players.
Yeah, Rex is living history. He won the World Championship for the first time in August 1968 against Clark McConaughey at the YMCA Stadium in Auckland, New Zealand. So what's that, 56 years ago?
And recently we were in Jersey and with Bert Sawyer there, 93 years of age, playing billiards and playing to a very high standard. Fantastic. I think psychologically, Phil, as well, the player ahead at the mid-session interval, albeit it is 2.5 hour first session, will feel that that's a very important mark to lay down in this final. And just the slide off the cushions there, Rob going for a 2-cushion cannon and just slipping outside it. Now, looks like a chance for Dave. Pot red, maybe stay there. Just gone a bit high on the half ball line. There's a line from the centre pocket down to the red on the billiard spot where you can just force the in-off along a half ball line. So should be able to make this. And has he held the red before it gets to balk? Just about. So now he can bring the red out to the centre of the table and just move the white down an inch or two to leave the enough.
We're getting messages from all over the world. One from Steve Jones, who tells us that in Winnipeg, Manitoba, that city's home to a thriving 100-year-old billiard league with 70 active players. Tell you what, this time of year, Winnipeg is starting to get quite cold. The coldest street corner in the world is there, Portage in Maine. They reckon the winds blow down and it's bitingly cold. So, yeah, I think billiards is a good game. Be indoors.
I've never been to Canada. Look forward to going at some stage. Now, Dave didn't want that little cannon for the red. Just hit the object ball there. So and Dave is renowned for making scores from difficult positions, but he does want to keep them under control. So can he go in off centre here, or he gets the cannon? Yep. And now suddenly a perfect opportunity, leaves himself the in off red, and he'll have the in off white ready. Two choices here now. He can in off red, send it down and play the reverse drop. Normally the drop cannon would be from the red onto the white in this instance, which would be down near the billiard spot, but they're reversed at the moment, but still the end result should be the same. Send the red towards the pocket and put, that's beautiful. I've spoken to Dave quite a lot about his positioning side on the drop cannon, and his priority is to get his opponent's ball directly behind the billiard spot, because he feels he can work with the red ball either in a pot or an in-off to work it to where he wants to be. But the priority is set up the object ball behind the billiard spot so you've got top of the table as soon as possible. The Norfolk County Handicap Billiards champion is watching from Norwich too. Hello to you, and thanks for watching us here on our YouTube channel, the WBL YouTube channel. People watching from Newcastle. Pat Coldrick, wonderful guitar player who plays at our opening ceremony for the match play in Carlow every year. Also watching in Sutton in Dublin. And now this is the perfect top of the table position.
Yes, and we've got a viewer watching Suhail from Morocco.
Well, that's the great thing about the billiard family. They just love to watch good billiards, and it doesn't get any better than a World Championship final with Rob Hall, such a brilliant young player.
I suppose with Sam Jones doing the streaming here, if we wanted a replay, we could do what they did in Morocco. Say, play it again, Sam.
I like it. I like it. I did hear Peter Sheehan earlier on talking about the billiard patterns that emerge, where we all know that I don't think anybody has ever seen two frames of snooker exactly the same. You may see positioning on, say, the clearing colours from yellow to black being exactly the same position, but there are little patterns in billiards, certainly for top of the table, where you play pot red, you play the cannon, then you pot the red, put it back on the spot, play the pot, play the cannon, the little 8 sequence, and you'll see those here quite a lot.
And Suhail says, yeah, he's actually from Casablanca, so that little joke worked out well. Agadir or Rabat might not have worked quite so well.
Another message simply signed from in the red corner says, hello from Barnsley. I miss playing in these tournaments, not playing for many years and so out of practice. Well, the great thing is that I think it's like riding a bicycle. It would come back to you quite quickly. Adrian Wright wonders, do these tables have modified pockets? It seems the ref seems to pick the ball out at the top of the pocket. Well, what that is that Paul Cosgrove, who's from Australia, has brought with him. They're called pocket blockers. They look like, almost like a wine glass with felt in them, and the referees have placed those into the corner pockets so that they wish to retrieve the balls as quickly as possible for the players, so the referee is able to put his hand into the pocket, and rather than the ball falling down onto the rail, it just sits underneath the bed of the table and they pick it out quite quickly. So the pockets aren't modified per se, but there is a little mechanism there to speed up the process from the referee's point of view.
And Causier speeding up his scoring here, pulling away again.
Mark Hill watching. Mark, who's a regular player here in the tournament. If we had a category of best dressed player, he would probably win it every year. Always colour coordinated, shiny shoes, the suit matching the tie, matching the shirt, matching the waistcoat. So hello to you, Mark. And Dave, as you see the break on 80 there, so in the level 6 tournaments you must do a balk line crossing between 80 and 100, and that's something which Dave practices on a regular basis, and just exercising that missed red out of his mind there with that deep screw. Referee Martin Riley just double checking that that wasn't a second pot off the spot, which it wasn't, because it would have gone up on the centre spot. And hello to all our viewers from Northern Ireland. Keith McCready, a great supporter and player of snooker and billiards, and we've played many times in the North-South Challenge, Republic of Ireland versus Northern Ireland. Some fantastic young players in the north of Ireland now.
So Causier's on the cusp of getting 600 up, while Hall is marooned on 2-2-1. This lead is becoming obviously not decisive, nowhere near it, but it's becoming substantial.
Yes, heading for 400 points of a lead, but both of these players will be aware of the skill of the other. I'm reminded of a reverse situation in Carlisle maybe 2 years ago in the semi-final of the tournament there. I think Rob was the best part of 400 points ahead of Dave with about 38 minutes to go, and Dave managed to put an extraordinary break together and hold the table and just get over the line. So Dave will know that Rob, and indeed I remember in Bruges, in the Trick Shot Club, Olivier van der Hoed, his wonderful club in Bruges, Peter Gilchrist, I think it was, broke off, and Rob, his first poke was a 500 break. So Rob Hall, very, very capable of a huge break. So Dave will be aware of that. But this is a nice position now for the drop cannon. Watch the white ball go off the side cushion and head down towards. If you have a look at where the score point is there for the time, just landing right almost in front of that. So a little bit of drag on right hand side, won't move the red too much, but will just make the cannon. And now he has positioned the cue ball exactly behind the billiard spot, exactly where he wants it for the floating bite. And I'm not sure whether Dave has had the postman's knock position yet in this match, but this looks like it could possibly be an opportunity to, well, not yet now because he's moved the white away, but he wedges the object ball behind the billiard spot on the cushion, and it can stay there for 10 or 15 minutes. Even the red dots on the ball don't seem to move when he gets the cannon. Just having a look to see the angle to get in off the white after he puts this red, if he wants to rescue it that way. And the reason he's doing that is he wants to bring the cue ball up maybe 4 feet, near enough to the line of the centre of the table to then leave himself a drop cannon back.
And I think Causier is the kind of player, the deeper he goes, the more the lead builds, the more freedom he'll have, and the better he'll become. The opposite of a vicious circle.
I think that's true of any of the great players, that even though they know their skill set and they know how good they are nervous in, and by the way, that wasn't a missed pot, that was a screwback cannon played with plenty of pace to bring the red ball down to exactly where it is now. That's exactly what Dave was trying to do. But they are fully aware that one mistake, I likened it once to the guys walking over, I don't know, the Grand Canyon without a safety net, that if they trip, they're gone. So they know that one mistake at this level could be a 40-minute sit in your chair while your opponent makes a 400 or a 500. So it's to get that combination of confidence to go for the shot and be fully aware of the ramifications if you were to miss it.
The break up to 139. Highest of the final so far, 151. We thought it was going to be threatened. We'll have to wait.
And the problem for Rob here is that because that wasn't an expected miss, his cue ball is wedged to the top cushion virtually, so he's going to have to play a half ball off the red onto the side cushion for cannon. Now he needs that yellow to stop. We may see a beautiful run through in off the yellow, which is very difficult with lots of left hand side unless he can force the red in. So if he takes on the yellow in off, it's one that needs perfect cueing. He just doesn't like it too much, I think, so he may work the red for 1 or 2 shots. Or is he going for a 4 cushion cannon? He is. There's the 4 cushions and there's the cannon. Great shot from Rob.
And if he could get something going here, that kind of shot could stick in the mind and be a positive beacon for him.
Well, that shows you the quality of play from Rob Hall. In 2 shots, he's taken what looked like a difficult position, and he has a top of the table just like that. So lots of right-hand side. See the side, and then it just comes in and flicks the yellow. Now, if this was a training session on Rob's table at home, Rob, one of the best coaches in the business, and has a huge diary of people who look for his services. And he has a YouTube channel where he puts up explanations and shots to play or whatever. But if this were Rob at home in a practice session, he would expect a 2, 3, 400.
from the town of Lincoln. He's good friends with a buddy of mine, Stephen Hallworth, who's doing so well in the commentary box these days.
And you've also worked with one of the great Dublin men, Mr. Fergal O'Brien, now, who's again on Eurosport doing lots of commentary as well, and a great coach.
Yeah, Fergal, what a guy. Always been a real big fan of him, the way he approaches the game, the way he thinks about the game. He comes into the commentary box, you know, with plenty of notes, and he puts everything into it as he did when he was playing.
Problem here for Rob, not directly. He's going to have to screw off the cushion with side to hold and get the cannon. Just had to do that there because they had lined up. So from a position where he was perfectly sorted, just being slightly out of position. So that's a good recovery, making sure that there's a maxim in billiards. Make sure there's a shot on at all times. And certainly Rob has options here. He could play the 6-shot, pot red and follow it in off. Or he could leave the white just there and play the in off red, bring the red back to the middle of the table. Well, now that's just come slightly off the line, so it's, if there's a line directly from the centre of the pocket to the red on either side, it's a straightforward half ball. So he might have to just come in off the yellow here now. Just needs to get the pace right.
Sometimes middle pockets can be inhospitable, but that was knocked in with aplomb.
So no problem with the next in off, but the main criterion needed on this shot is to position the yellow so that it's perfect for a drop cannon. And that looks just about perfect. So you put the cue ball between, say, what would be the brown spot and the green spot, right over on the green spot for snooker aficionados, and a bit of left-hand side, and the white will swing over onto the red and push it on and off the cushion. So once again, getting them back into position. May have to do a run-through cannon here, red off the cushion and back again. And now he's in business.
40.
So just a few seconds to go before we're at the point where there's 1 hour left in the session. And maybe Hall, if he can't get back onto level terms, could certainly get close. And then the lunch he has will taste a lot sweeter. So I know, Angus, you do a lot of, well, Angus I should say, I know you do a lot of work with Sean Murphy in exhibitions. I'm intrigued to know, does Sean play billiards?
He does indeed. In his youth, he said he was a 300 brakeman was his top, and we've had a couple of games in his club in Dublin when he was living there. He's moved back to the UK in recent months, and he was all set to try and partake in one of our WBL events, and we're anxious and hopeful and confident that he will at some stage if we can fit it into the diary. But he really loves the billiards, and on a number of occasions he has texted me after games and said, "Did you notice the little cannon I played?" And I'm a great believer, and I've said it to snooker players, that if you think about an all-round cannon where you're playing off 4 cushions to hit the second ball, that's the thinking that I use to escape from snookers and to lay snookers, and billiards gives you a great appreciation of that. But yes, Sean is a lovely billiard player, and we had a fantastic exhibition because obviously, as you know, one of the aims and objectives of WBL is to try and spread the game and get people involved. And one of the things it needs is a bit of stardust playing. And Dave Causier and Sean and myself had a wonderful night in Harrogate in the Conservative Club. And it went very much as expected. There was a best of 7, which Sean, in snooker, Sean beat Dave 4-0, even though Dave had sort of chances in every frame. Then we did a best of 3 100s in billiards, which Dave won. And then we did 300 in billiards. And the score was Sean Murphy 0, Dave Causier 300. But it was exactly what we needed, which was get people seeing billiards played by snooker players, which is hopefully there'll be more of that. Now, this is a good opportunity for Rob Hall here, if he could put a double century together, it would both give him good confidence and narrow the gap. And of course, yesterday we had the Ladies World Championships here, and somebody online wondering what was the result. And I can tell you that a wonderful young Indian player, Shruti L, scored 215, and Kiras Bandal, who's also Indian, scored 202. And one of the things that pleased me greatly was to see there must have been 40 or 50 of the men who had been here playing in the World Championships were all sitting and watching those matches. So it was wonderful to see the encouragement. And I have to say, beautiful billiards played by all of the ladies. They're long jennies, the cross losers, the short jennies. They know the game, and the future is good.
Yeah, Shruti beat Eva Parmius in the semi-finals, and Bandal, she defeated Julie Watson in the last four.
Now, as long as Rob doesn't get a blocker here, that'll be good. And that's more or less exactly what he got. So he can go skinny off the yellow with right hand side. And one of the things, I love the dots on the cue ball because you can see the work that's been put on. I saw Mark Allen last week in Belfast saying that he hopes they never bring in the dotted cue ball, or the coloured, spotted cue ball, shall I say, because I don't want people to see just how badly I cue across the ball. But I think it's very beneficial, particularly for billiard shots, the Jenny, where you can see the side and you can see the effect of the side.
Yeah, well, of course, the gentleman we've just been talking about, Sean Murphy's a great advocate of these spotted balls, as we see the yellow go in, which is not what he wanted. But I must say I'm on the side of Mark Allen. I think it might lead to a loss of performance, because snooker players are all about repetition and what they're used to and familiarity. And I think if they did have the spotted ball, it would cause all kinds of problems initially.
So Dave was double balked, so opting to play the push-out stroke. Some people disagree with the idea that you can play, it's not a foul, but it's a miss for 2 points. A lot of people try and rescue the red and the white, but the thinking is that at least if you put your ball safe, your opponent has to try and then work to get all three balls back in play. So choices for Rob here: a big forcing in off into the top left-hand pocket as we look at it, or he could try and play the cannon back up to the yellow with the white. Yeah, he's gone for the forcer. Now it depends. This may end up just stuck on the top cushion here. Will he get a bit of a bounce? Okay, so the yellow is out of box. So will he play the half ball with loads aside or play safe? Well, he's just, playing safe. So I think we could be in for a bit of nip and tuck here for a moment. Dave's normal inclination would be to try a cannon around several cushions, but he's simply going to bide his time.
So then, obviously, this is all about scoring this game. Huge totals are amassed. What would be a really lengthy safety exchange?
Well, we've had situations where there have been 6, 7, 8 shots each, but the referee does have the discretion to give the players 2 or 3 more shots to develop the situation, because a bit like in a re-rack in snooker, you can have a situation where you would then have a string and play off. But neither player wants that. But the referee would warn the players that something has to give, because you just could have tip-tap forever, you know.
When you've been in a commentary box at 1 o'clock in the morning and you think that a 7-shot safety exchange is a lengthy one. For snooker commentators, that's nirvana.
I think I heard you mention on TV once about a re-rack on the pink, or it might have been the pink.
Yeah, that's the record, a re-rack on the pink. I think the record for the Crucible is a re-rack on the blue. I recall one, the Welsh Open, many moons ago, Gary Wilkinson against Dennis Taylor, and I think it was the first frame of the match where it was re-racked after 56 minutes. That was a hard breaker. But you don't really get those these days, because nowadays I think players arrive at a mutual consent much earlier about re-racks than they ever used to. And on 90% of the occasions where a re-rack is called, maybe even more than that, it's about the two players getting their heads together rather than a referee intervening.
So the job for Rob now is to work the red for a few more in-offs and bring it to, now, as you see, the wonderful trophy, the John Roberts trophy that these guys are playing for, the oldest World Championship trophy in the history of sport. But Rob taking the opportunity to go for the cannon, and a little wave of the hand there. He was playing the cannon, which he didn't get, but it slipped past and went in off. But he's either going to try and play that cannon, or he needs to move the red closer to the balk line in order then to... This is going to jangle. It could jangle and off the... Yeah. I don't think that made it. Just Martin O'Reilly walking in to check it there. So just didn't quite make the cannon. So, but not a nice leave for Dave. He may be forced to play safe here, or is he going for... Well, no, Dave won't be happy with that, but forced to have a go there. So still has a 300-point lead, but an early opportunity now for... Rob would love to get the yellow out of balk as well. So does he play the in-off red gently to leave the red near the balk line to rescue the yellow in a couple of shots? Or does he play the cannon off the yellow, screw across to the red? Neither. He played the in-off, but that's not a great position on the yellow. So depending on how confident he's feeling, he might try to play the cannon here, or he could simply play the very slow pot yellow into the corner pocket.
So the difference is now exactly 300.
Well, that's a poor shot from Rob if Dave can see in off red here. That yellow should have been right down in the mouth of the corner pocket. Oh, beautifully controlled shot there. Loads of right hand side against the nap and slows down the, because that, despite what some snooker players say, the side does transfer, so that the side on the red, oh my goodness. I don't think I've ever seen Dave do that. Wow. That was a bread and butter red into the centre, in off, and maybe just played it a tad too quickly.
Yeah, a whole series of mistakes being made by both players. I think that's indicative of what's at stake here.
Well, it is the big one, the long up final. So Rob just having to put a bit of bottom and left hand side just to swing the cue ball in. Just 45 minutes left approximately in this first session. 2 sessions of 2.5 hours to decide this 2024 World Billiards long up final. So Rob just needs to run the red a few times and get them into position for some top of the table play, which is the quickest way for these guys to score.
I think it's important to state the dominance of David Causier on the circuit these days. He's won 7 ranking events this season. Irish Open, World Match Play, Austrian Open, Scottish Open, the Jim Williamson Open as well, and of course the event that was the precursor of this, right here at the Landywood Snooker Centre, the English Open, just a few days back.
Well, that's the second or third long enough that Rob has missed. So, as you say, Phil, an unusual and inordinately high number of misses from these players that you would not expect, which shows they're both feeling it out there. Well, Phil, I'm going to take my leave of you. Thank you so much. And again, on behalf of World Billiards, we're so thrilled to have the main man himself doing commentary. It's fantastic to have you here.
Angus, the pleasure is all mine. And I'll tell you what, seriously, we've been apart for 20 years. Let's hope it's not another 20 years because we might not make it. Now taking the place of Angus McAnally is Chris Coomer's a great enthusiast and lover of billiards who played in this tournament.
Thanks so much, Phil. Yeah, I played in the event. It's been great here, really. Got to the last 24 myself, so not too bad. But watching a great final here. And as you can see, Dave is getting quite a handy lead now, really, as we get to the point of about 50 minutes to go in this session.
So you say the last 24, that's an unusual number for knockout Q Sports. Basically, that was arrived at because we had 8 groups, and the 8 group winners were all seeded into the last 16, weren't they? And, of course, David Causier and Rob Hall, having won groups B and C, they were seeded.
Yeah, that's right. The top 8 seeds go straight through to the last 16, and then the remaining players play off in the last 24. So it's in the group stage, not all the group winners are guaranteed a bye to the last 16, but they're basically just trying to outscore each other, really, because the greater on the points aggregate is what determines who are the top 8 seeds. So even in the group stage, that's certainly a factor for these top guys.
And of course, it's really good to have that incentive because having to skip a match means you can rest and recuperate and not take as much out of yourself.
Yeah, it's a big point, really, because the last 24, which was played on Tuesday at 4 o'clock, is a 2-hour match, and then only half an hour later is the last 16. So for the players that had to get through to the last 24, it's quite a lot of billiards, really, for 4.5 hours and only a half-hour break. So it's certainly a lot going on.
I'm intrigued to know how physically demanding it is if you play, say, a 2-hour match. Does the old back start to ache a little?
Yeah, well, I mean, there has been players that have, commented on, particularly for this event, just obviously the scheduling and how demanding it can be. Certainly, I mean, obviously you don't spend the whole time at the table, but physically and probably more so mentally, if you get a handy lead in a match and you get quite a way ahead, it's maybe less taxing, but a tight match can be very difficult and really to maintain that for long periods.
We've just seen Rob Hall miss that by a whisker. And that's reminiscent of what happened right at the start of the match. He missed a cannon by a fraction. And that led to David Causier stepping in with a break of 92, quickly followed by a run of 151. And he's been nicely ahead, despite a few fumbles ever since.
Nicely played shot there, just glanced in the whites there, so Dave's got a nice in-off here. And he'll be looking certainly to get back to the top end of the table. It's just amazing how quick Dave transforms these positions, and obviously Rob's the same, but just from nowhere, just within 3-4 shots, they've got it mapped out in their mind. And in no time at all, they just seem to get back into prime position.
Yeah, you might get the impression, if you didn't know about the game, you might get the impression that David Causier is nonchalant. That's far from the truth. It's just that he doesn't need thinking time. It's all absolutely instinctive.
Yeah, it's just so... he just calculates the shot so quickly, and I think very often the first shot that he sees is the one he plays. You'll very rarely see Dave sort of thinking of one shot and then playing something else or weighing up the options. He's just such a quick, decisive player when it comes to shot selection, and down on the shot as well, he wastes very little time.
Now a little extra thinking time required there. Just a second, as it were. And again, up off the shot. Not quite as quick as normal. Still quick, but having to think about that.
This has gone slightly awkward. He's not quite gone far enough for the in-off red, but tried to force it in-off white. That was quite tough, really, for Dave. But left Rob a bit of an opener here.
So again, those not in the know would think, well, you can pot the red off the spot and just keep doing that. But of course, the rules dictate you can't.
Yeah, back in the day, going back to the late 1800s, early 1900s, great players like William Peel used to just play continuous pots off the spot, and there's been other players of that caliber, George Gray, just playing continuous in-offs, and then other methods of scoring like the nursery cannons that are very repetitive. But yeah, in the modern day, that's sometimes you see players play a few pots in sequence just to get their cue arm going, perhaps, but it's not something that these players are doing. Obviously, with the rules, you can only play 15 hazards, which is a pot and drawing in off, before you have to do something else.
Now, there was a lapse from Rob Hall. The contact with his opponent's ball, not quite as hard as he wanted it to be, and that's why he's got to play this very complex massé shot. Oh, well done.
Yeah, beautifully played. That's the amazing thing about that shot is the action they get on the cue ball just to play that massé, but they're almost not playing it with any power, because as soon as you put too much power into that, then the ball just sort of squirts off and you don't get any action at all. So the yellow's in a good position now. He's just trying to play a few shots off the red, and preferably over a middle pocket so he can play a pot. He'd prefer not to play a drop cannon if he can help it. With the yellow where it is, he doesn't really want to disturb it, but looks like he's going to have to do that here. So almost 300 points the difference now, and Rob will certainly be hoping he can put a big break in soon to try and narrow that gap, especially with when it starts getting towards the end of this session.
Yeah, we've mentioned the fact that Causier plays very quickly, but Rob Hall also, there's no hanging around with him.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when they get into prime position like this, then all the top players are capable of making a 100 break within about 6 or 7 minutes. This is absolutely perfect now. Rob's got such a great touch. I mean, I refereed one of his matches in the group stage, and you certainly get a good view of what's going on when you're up close refereeing. And just a lovely smooth cue action. Quite a long backswing, really, I suppose, but he's got a lovely touch, and very quickly he settles into whatever table he happens to be playing on.
Yes, in the semi-finals he defeated the title holder Peter Gilchrist, 1,217 to 1,050. Won all of his 4 group matches. Beat Drew Sitwaller in the quarterfinals. That was a narrow victory actually, 7-0-4 to 6-4-5. And John Hughes in the last 16.
Yeah, the semi-final last night was a really exciting match, and it came back to being a lot closer. Really, at one point it was several hundred points in the game, but yeah, excited finish, and obviously Rob knew what a big task he had on his hands, but that's a great win, and we knew that he was capable of beating Peter, but like I say, he knew that playing someone of his calibre was a great win, and he's certainly deserved to be in the final here today.
He's got a very good resume himself, 14 world ranking titles. He's been English amateur champion 7 times since 2012. And he's been in 3 world finals, 2017 IBSF World Championship, 2015, the short format. He lost 6-1 to his opponent today, David Causier. And in 2014, he got to the final of the long format World Billiards Championship, losing out to Pankaj Advani.
Yeah, Rob's been around on the circuit a long time. I know on the EABA circuit, the English Amateur Billiards, he is a prolific winner there, especially a number of tournaments that are played over a single day, and he's won, many of those. I wouldn't like to put a number on it. He's, such a prolific winner, and on World Billiards, like you say, Phil, he's been around on the circuit for, 10, 15 years or more, really. We know he's got the game to be world champion, but it's just obviously so tough to do. It's the greatest test, really, playing over this distance.
Oh dear.
Yeah, that's not a pot that he'll be expecting to miss, and with where the red's gone as well, that's going to leave an opportunity for Dave. Not easy to, I was going to say not easy to control the cue ball. I did expect Dave to pop that, but not sure whether he played that a bit quick, perhaps.
Well, he definitely snatched it, though, as we see that lovely shot to continue the earlier break. Yeah, Causier definitely snatched it, that red over the pocket. You could see the shoulder come into the shot. And that suggests, well, it doesn't suggest, it tells you that he's feeling it.
Yeah, perhaps he was not expecting that miss from Rob Hall there, and maybe he just came to the table obviously very eager to capitalise on it. And we know how quick a player Dave is. Maybe he could have taken a second longer, but every opportunity they just want to pounce on that they get, especially when Dave's trying to extend his lead even further, put that pressure on Rob.
I think sometimes quick players are like that because that's their best defence against feeling the onset of nerves. It was certainly the case with a famous Maltese cueist, Tony Drago. He told me that himself. Someone suggested he play a little slower. He said, I can't. I get too nervous.
Yeah, funny, I was reading a book recently, a biography of the great Walter Lindrum, and I can't remember the exact details, but I remember that from reading about it, he said Walter was getting some advice from someone that he knew quite well, and they suggested to him to play quicker. And he took that advice, and what an amazing person Walter was, but even for someone like him, he found that to be maybe less doubt in his mind and took less out of him when you're playing over such long distance. And I remember that from reading about that was something he took on board. So I think the faster you play, maybe it just brings less doubt into your mind, makes you commit to the shots quicker, and any difficulty that's presented to you may not play such a part.
Yeah, I think the logic is the more you think about things, the more chance there is of negativity creeping into the old grey matter.
Yeah, I think I was finding that with pots as well, tricky pots, as we see this Massey again. Great control there. Such a no power involved, almost just dropping the cue onto the ball there. But yeah, I was finding with the pots, tricky pots on these tables, that I think the more you think about them, they seem to get harder, I think once you commit to a shot, you've just got, and it's the right shot, you've just got to try and play it.
I think, as with everything, it's about moderation. Don't be too hasty, but then again, don't be too ponderous. And of course, I think the most important thing is to play naturally. To play naturally in a natural situation, which a world final is. You're not going to feel any more pressurised than you do right now. The Rob Hall deficit is being slowly erased.
Yeah, Rob's just trying to get back to the top here, and he might be able to have the angle to knock that yellow in a good position now. I know he's just having to send it back up to the middle pocket. But yeah, like you say, Phil, if he can get back to the top of the table here, good position, not take any risks, then we could see that deficit reduced.
Sets up the second session beautifully. The neutrals will be hoping that it gets a little closer.
Yeah, it's always difficult to know, isn't it, over these long matches, 5 hours. I know we've already mentioned, but clearly the final last year was very one-sided. But it does certainly create a lot of suspense if, you know, the match could change hands several times. Leads can be erased. You know, like we said, players can make 100 breaks in 5 or 6 minutes, and so if there's time remaining, someone said to me earlier, what's the point where a player cannot catch up? You know, but a lot of it just comes down to the time available, and these players don't panic. If they know there's time to win, then once they get in position, they're normally confident of doing some damage.
Oh, that's going to hurt. That is going to hurt Rob Hall. He walks away from the table smiling, but that's not the real emotion.
Yeah, he'll be disappointed with that. And Dave straight to the table, not wasting any time, just, you know, wanted to capitalise on that fully. He'll know this is quite an important moment now.
Yeah, I'm loath to say that could be a turning point. We've seen about 20 of them already.
An unexpected miss from Dave there. Seemed to just slide back behind the back of the red.
Now, from the gesticulation of Rob Hall, is he suggesting that cue ball just veered off slightly? Well, this is an extraordinary passage of play.
Yeah.
4 mistakes in no time.
Yeah, strange, isn't it? I think both players have been coming to the table perhaps not expecting the chance that they've been presented with. Balls have gone slightly awkward. But yeah, Rob didn't seem happy about something. Maybe, like I say, Phil, maybe got a bad contact or...
What we must emphasise is that this Landywood Snooker Club is absolutely state-of-the-art. Over the course of my, 36 years now covering snooker and plenty of years before that playing it, I've never been in a club that's better than this. Conditions are simply superb, and the memorabilia that's festooned around the walls here is just entrancing.
It's absolutely fantastic. Just the attention to detail of every part of the club is incredible, and you really get a nice feel as soon as you walk into the place. All the staff are so welcoming, accommodating. Paul Lloyd, Nicola here especially, you know, Debbie, they really could not have been any more accommodating. The playing conditions are fantastic, and like you said, the memorabilia, I mean, it must have taken such a great deal of effort to get that all put together, because it gives a great feel about the place. It's got that nice mix between a modern club but also having that traditional feel about it.
13.
Yeah, a few comments there. Adrian Wright making the point that really precise top of the table play. The pots are always unmissable. I think that's true, but doesn't take much just on these tables to see the red just drift slightly closer to the top cushion than what the player would want, and it can always leave a tricky missable pot.
15.
But I think that the tight pockets on actually helps top of the table, because when you're playing the cannons and you want the red just to stay over the pocket, on a table that's a lot more generous, you can often see that red drop in and spoil the position. So that's something that's less likely to happen when you've got a tight table.
You know, the first time I ever saw professional billiards, I went up to Wigan. My boss at the time, Clive Everton, was playing, and I was very keen to see him involved in a match. And the pockets that week, it was a festival of 2 or 3 events. The pockets that week were brutal. I'll never forget it.
Yes, I mean, shots like short jennies, long jennies, for example, when you're obviously trying to play from a narrow angle into the middle pocket or the top pocket, in off, lots of side. If it's a very tight table, you have to get very deep into the pocket, whereas on a more generous table, there's a bit more margin of error there. So it can get very tricky, but these players have got such accurate techniques that it seems to just not affect them so much.
22.
So, Causier, first 2 visits, established a lead in excess of 200. And now Rob Hall is trying to get that down to more manageable proportions, and he's doing a pretty good job. 26 minutes left in the session before we break for half-time, and again, just when you think Hall might get an advantage here and start to bridge the gap, something goes astray.
2. 4.
Yeah, and Dave didn't really have many chances there to press a break, obviously with the white hanging over the pocket. Tried to see if he could get it away from that area, but ended up potting it, as you can see. So I think we'll be seeing a double bulk very shortly. So he leaves himself this crossing off. He may be able to send it straight into bulk if he's got the angle for that, as he's done.
10.
So certainly not giving Rob any chances, Phil, is he? Rob just desperately wants to get back in position, but I don't think Dave's going to play any risky shots if he can help it. He just wants to keep the pressure on, really.
Yeah, it's all about the W for David Causier today. All about the victory. Well, shockingly to many, myself included, Causier only scored 783 points in total in last year's final. He could exceed that, might well exceed that, in the first session this year.
Yeah, certainly last year's final was really unexpected, and like as we said earlier, I don't think there was any particular reason for it. I think it was just maybe after such a long week of billiards, he just run out of steam, and Peter obviously kept the pressure on and played very well himself, but just seemed to be a few chances going astray now, doesn't it? Perhaps they both got the end of the session in their mind, both players with different agendas, I suppose. Rob's obviously trying to close that gap, whereas Dave doesn't want to, Dave wants to go to the mid-session break as comfortable as he can, really.
Chris, I'm not laying the blame on you at all, but since you sat down, there have been more mistakes than the rest of the session put together.
Commentator's curse. Yeah, Rob's just looking to see where he can place his cue ball to try and play a cannon that will bring the yellow out into a good position. Normally when the opponent's cue ball's in that area, 2 pots off the spot, when it goes up onto the middle spot they can leave that cannon.
Nine.
Mitch Lowbridge has commented that he was glad we mentioned the Landywood Snooker Club here. He said it's my local club, and what Paul has done with it is absolutely first class. Well, Mitch, couldn't agree more. And I'll tell you what, you're very lucky to have this as your local club.
Yeah, I've been saying that to a couple of people as well. Just if this was my local, I'd be very, very happy. Just what a fantastic facility, and I think it's probably only going to keep getting better and better. I know Paul, the owner, is obviously very keen to keep maintaining that standard, and he always seems to have a lot of ideas. So we wish them all the best, and we hope that we'll be coming here for many years to come for these events.
Now, how about that from Rob Hall? Closing in on the 500-point mark.
Three.
Yeah, so about 20 minutes to go in this session, and ideally the player at the table would love to have a nice position to come back to when it gets to that point on a break. We saw in one of the matches yesterday a player had left himself a lovely drop cannon to come back to, which is the standard shot in billiards. But the balls just seem to have gone a little bit awkward at the moment. Good cannon there, but it's not getting any easier.
And now the gap is under 200 points.
Good pot that in the middle. I mean, you know about these star tables, Phil. That's such a great shot, isn't it? To pot at that angle into the middle. It looks a lot easier when you're watching it on the screen, doesn't it? On TV.
I always say when you go to a snooker or a billiards event, just take a look at the table on these stars and basically put the yellow on its spot, maybe, to try and pot it with the cue ball behind it. There's hardly anything to go for. The pocket almost doesn't exist. They are so tight.
Yeah, these cloths were brand new for this tournament, but after a few days of play, they even seem to get slightly tighter, as maybe they're just very fractionally less slide on the as you're playing those pots. And so, if anything, they may be a touch tighter than what they were at the start of the event. But yeah, it's got to be so accurate, very little margin for error. But this looks more like a good position for Rob. He can set himself drop cannon shortly.
Yeah, actually, Steve Tuck has said, I've experienced the star tables in Leeds, and for an average player like me, they're absolutely brutal. Well, I would not disagree with that at all. There's a misconception, actually, when you watch televised snooker, or in this case billiards, that the pockets play easily. It really is total rubbish. They are so tight, and much tighter than the normal club table.
Yeah, and a really responsive cloth as well. Really makes a big difference to a lot of shots in billiards. You get a very wide throw, a bit of extra pace on the shot, where on a club table it might still react in a normal way, but on these tables you could miss it by 6 inches or more, from the same way of playing it, so it can really catch players out if they're not careful.
Well, thanks, Chris. Hope to have your company again later on today. Now we're going to introduce a gentleman I know from snooker from a few years back, Paul Cosgrave, Australian referee who refereed the final of the English Open here on Sunday. And we're going to talk about the game from a refereeing perspective. By the way, I must tell you, Paul, we often tell the story about when you were refereeing that match. Tony Drago and Alan McManus. You knew what I was going to say even before I mentioned those two names. Because I work with Alan a lot and we have a laugh about it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I tell people that story and I tell them what Alan said. I said, would you accept the concession? He said, I'll take a win any way I can get it.
And who can blame him? So, what's been your impression this week, Paul?
I'm astounded at the skill of these particular players. When you're somebody like me who does play billiards but plays it at a very poor level, you just marvel at the things that they're able to do. They never seem to hit the ball harder than it needs to be hit. And it's an amazing thing to me when in lots of situations in snooker, you know, they need to hit the ball very hard to get around for a position on another pot. But these guys play at a much more controlled sort of pace because there's a variation in the shot that they can play to follow up.
Just as you came into the commentary box there, Rob Hall made another error, and you can only speculate just how costly this one will be. David Causier needs a lengthy time at the table.
Mm-hmm. They both do. It's an amazing thing with billiards itself. When you have your rhythm, it just flows. You know, it's beautiful to watch.
And there is no rhythm here. Look at that one, the in-off missed again.
Yeah, very, very unusual. The difficulty with them is that they're always thinking not just of making the shot, but where they need to leave the ball for the next shot. And so if you're not in sync, you know, if you've got other pressures that are affecting you, then it does make it incredibly difficult. It's an amazing game in terms of the fact that people who don't play it do not understand the difficulty of what they're trying to do.
So just over 15 minutes left in this session, and I think what occurs in this quarter of an hour could well have a big impact on what occurs in the remaining 2.5 hours after the break.
Mm-hmm. Now, you see there, Rob looks at the in-off and he thinks that it's going to have to be played too hard and he can't control the red. So he's taken on what is a more difficult pot, because if he can make that, then he has the balls in a much better position. So when Dave plays the in-off, he leaves it to try and leave the drop cannon position. Now, having played the drop cannon position, he is now playing the contact on the second ball to push it over the hole. Right, so there's the next shot, okay? Now, when he wants to play this shot, he wants to get in the right position to then play the cannon. So he will play it with the rest and come back to the other side of the white ball. See how he does it without having to hit the ball hard, with a side that brings it up on that angle, okay? So it actually makes a cannon. That's okay. He's now on the correct side for the red. He'll probably screw back and then have himself on that side where, again, you're trying to look to play the cannon.
He's such a monumental scorer. We were talking about the fact that you refereed the English Open final a few days ago.
Mm-hmm.
In that, Causier beat Gilchrist 1,051 to 122, making en route breaks of 150, 212 and 486. Nothing approaching that yet, but it's always in the locker.
It is. It's always there in terms of his skill and his ability. And when he was 400 in front, he wanted to make a 400 break, and the 486 just, you know, blew the margin out. But it's the way he plays. When he's in rhythm, he's gorgeous. Now, the snooker players look at this as just a pot. The billiard players look at it as a pot to finish in the position to then play the cannon on the next shot.
So very quickly back over 200 in front. But he won't be feeling any sense of security whatsoever. He'd like to run this out now until
The end of the session.
the end
Correct.
of the session, exactly. Just stay there, stay in command.
Right, now he's up high, so when he plays the cannon, he'll play it with a lot of side so that he gets to the other side of the white. So he wants to get across to that side. If you just hit the white from behind like I would, you leave yourself a smother. So now he's got the white in the vicinity of the spot, so he's playing the reverse drop cannon. Back to white.
6.
So he did the double kiss on the white, so the white stays below the spot where you want it to be, and the red comes across, and you're in the perfect potting position. Now you want to get high so that you can play the cannon. If you're not high enough, you take one pot first.
51.
This is the skill of them, right? He played the cannon so the red would go back through the pack and the gap and be on that side. And sometimes they play it with the red, you know, very gently. Other times, strong enough to get it across back to the other side.
6.
And it's all absolutely second nature. There's not any
9.
pondering.
It's second nature for somebody like Dave Causier because he practices it 4 hours a day. It's like watching, you know, Tiger Woods play a very difficult golf shot, and he makes it look easy, but it's because he's practiced it
64.
100,000 times. Now, he will feel it's gone wrong. He was trying to play the red at a different pace, and then the kiss means that it's not in the place that he wants it to be. But if he can make that in off, then you see he's gathered the balls back together, and then he plays from in hand.
Yeah, caught the far jaw. And so Hall's back to the table. He must have been a little concerned there as Causier went his merry way. The lead back up to 249.
Mm-hmm. Now, catching the knuckle has defeated the whole purpose of the shot. It was trying to get both of them up into balk. But when he played the original shot, remember the situation before where David just potted the opponent, right? And then has more control over the shot that he plays next. Whereas Rob Hall chose to play the cannon, knock the ball in, different approach.
3.
Here, the pace is always to bring the red out into the middle of the table. Never hit it hard enough so it goes all the way to the cushion. Make sure it's in the middle. Then you can play the next shot. When you play the shot off that, again, middle of the table.
Right at the start of the match, of course, both players given 3 practice shots. And the in-off we've just seen, Causier play into that top left-hand pocket, was the one he chose to practice.
Right. Now, you play that in off to bring it a bit closer to the cushion because what you're doing is bringing it up to the balk line and you want to play a cannon from the red to the white to get the white out of balk. If he doesn't like the cannon, he can play the short Jenny. May even try and play the long Jenny. That's an awkward angle that he's got there. You see this? Down to the long pocket, so that's your long Jenny.
Well, that was a shot that keeps the break going. And all donations gratefully accepted here.
That's the David Causier choice, right? He's such a good potter that he plays a pot in that situation. Other players would probably play some sort of a cannon up to the white, but he takes on the pot because he is such a good potter. That is amazing in terms of the week that Rob Hall's had. He would never have missed that shot in the week that we've been here.
Yes, I think it's quite difficult to actually articulate just how many mistakes these two are making when they would not normally commit this kind of error. Nowhere near as often as they are doing.
Yeah, what Rob's doing here is firstly trying to compose himself. All right, he's back at the table sooner than he thought he would be, etc. and so on. He wants to work out how he pots the red and finishes in the perfect position to get in off the yellow. Okay, so he gets himself up to that half of the table, left himself on that angle that he goes in off the yellow, brings the yellow out of balk.
As Adrian Wright has just told us on the comments, Rob Hall made a 300 plus break to overtake Sid Waller in the quarterfinals.
Yes, he was 300 behind and he made a 325, I think it was. It was a magnificent match.
So working on the preface, if you do something once, you can do it again. He is most certainly not out of the reckoning here. It looks a big lead for David Causier, but he will not be feeling any sense of security whatsoever.
3 years ago, we had Rob Hall playing Saurav Kathari from India in the final out in Melbourne, where I'm tournament director. And at the halfway mark, they played number of points up. Rob Hall was 500 points behind and proceeded to make a 500 break. It turned into one of the closest, most exciting finals you can have. So safety shot, push the red onto the cushion, push his own ball over on the cushion.
Just 5 minutes left in the session. Can one of them do something meaningful?
It's a valid question for you to ask, Phil. In the minds of both players, if it's only 5 minutes to go, there's not much you can achieve. So they're both looking to not make a silly mistake, let the other person in. So this safety battle that's going on at the moment could continue for the whole of the 5 minutes.
And now, because obviously a lot of points can't be scored either way, it's time to sort of assess what's occurred in this session. Well, I think the thing that springs to my mind is the large amount of mistakes, far more than you would normally expect from these two. David Causier, how does he feel? Well, yes, he's nicely in front, but he knows he could well be even more ahead. On the other hand, Rob Hall knows, actually, with the chances he's had, he could have been in front.
Correct. Both players, when you're at this level, it's more about playing the balls. Okay, so if you were David Causier and you're thinking about, oh yes, I'm that far in front, but I wish I was more, what you now go is, why am I struggling to make a break? And whatever it is, if you've worked out that the table is throwing a bit more this morning or this afternoon, I don't care. But you know how the snooker players go out the practice room and try and get their cue action on track? Well, these fellas don't have a practice room to go out in this break. So what they do is they work on their own mental thing of what I've been doing in the way I've been playing and where has it come unstuck for me.
think the case is that at the tea break, as it were, both players will have regrets, but also both players will have something positive to grab onto.
Yep. That's a very good summation. All right. Both of them will go to the break feeling as though I've had lost opportunities, but nothing is beyond me at the moment. So now it's a matter of girding my loins, you know, getting ready for the second session and coming out with a positive frame of mind and doing the things that you've not only been doing for the whole of this week, but you've been doing for, 30 years of your life.
And even though he's made several faux pas, David Causier, the fact remains, he scored more points in this session than he scored in the entire final here last year.
Now, see the interesting choice of shot here. We know we're in the last couple of minutes. Don't do anything silly. So don't even take on a speculative shot. Pot the opponent, play your double balk, get yourself into the place where you're in the best position to do whatever needs to be done. Whether it takes the full 2 minutes or whether it just takes a minute, we actually get started on something before the second session. But you're making sure you make no mistakes.
A minute left in this opening session. And of course the next session will be on a brand new stream after the 1 hour hiatus.
This is the skill of them. When he plays that screw cannon to get there, he plays it with exactly the right amount of screw to bring the red all the way around and back over the jaws of the corner pocket. They're the same down here. When they play a screw cannon, you'll find that they always take the red up, bring it back, and it's sitting over the jaws.
13.
So if he knocks that in, yeah, he will be at the table when they return.
15. Time for the first half. Time.
The bell goes, the session is over. And at the end of the opening half of this World Billiards Championship final of 2024, David Causier leads his fellow Englishman Rob Hall by 814 points to 559. We'll be back shortly with the conclusion of what is turning out to be an intriguing match full of mistakes but also full of high quality billiards. See you shortly.